Welcome to Not Ready for the Farm as we explore the journey of aging. We navigate the blessings of growing older, how to age well, live fully with passion, purpose, relevancy, connection, and a good attitude. All through our laughter, our tears, our power, and of course, our changing bodies. We're not out of date. Our minds and hearts are curious, inspired, wise, and brave. With longer lifespans now, we spend more years as seniors than ever as kids. So we've got to get this right. After all, no one's getting out alive. Jess, we are about to meet somebody that is one of the best people I've ever had in my life, a longtime friend who was an event planner for many years and has now written a book called The Grief Train. And this is one of the most spiritual, insightful, intelligent, and heartfelt people I've ever known. And I'm really lucky to call her friend. I don't know what she calls me, but...
Well, it depends if it's to your face or behind your back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But this is one of these people that has a great amount of tact. So if she had something to say, she would probably just tell it to my face because we know each other that well.
So she is your friend, yeah.
She is my friend.
No, the book is really gorgeous.
It's gorgeous,
yeah,
beautiful,
it's
heartfelt.
Really wonderful. And it is such a cool thing to have a guide for people, right? Of not how it has to be done, but what it was like to go through this process and go through this life experience that everybody, as you say, we're lucky if we, go through these experiences, but nobody wishes it on anybody.
No, and there's all kinds of grief.
Yeah.
Losing a loved one like this, but there are so many ways that we experience grief. And Marinda, being a very spiritual, conscious person, is able to touch on much of that. And I think our viewers and our listeners are really going to enjoy meeting her and feel connected to her.
Well, I'm excited.
Oh, good. I've been talking about this a
little bit. It's a little tiny bit, meaning constantly.
So let us meet Marinda Freeman. Marinda, coming to us from Marin County, California today. How's the weather out there?
It's gorgeous and sunny. It's about mid-60s. Yesterday it was 71. So rain next week, which in the winter, I love all the hills get very green. So
yes, they do.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
I've walked those hills with you. One Thanksgiving when I had Thanksgiving dinner with you and your brother at your brother's house. And then these people, what was this? Went hiking in the hills. Yeah. What are you people doing? Why aren't we still sitting there watching football and eating?
Right.
But these people don't do that. They live a clean.
You're out.
They're out and about
and out in nature.
So, Marinda, you've written this book that is remarkable. It's called The Grief Train, and I'm going to hold it up so that our viewers and listeners, the listeners can't see it, but our viewers can see it.
Well, the listeners can go to the website.
Yes, they can. The Grief Train, Marinda Freeman. And it's a healing journey of love, loss, and renewal. So tell us, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I didn't know I was going to write this book. My husband died suddenly of a massive heart attack, my second husband. And I had to do 2 memorials. I actually had 3 events in the 2 weeks after he died, so I had a lot going on. And after I got through the memorials, I started a blog post just for myself to write my feelings and experiences as I was studying what is grief, what is sadness, really diving deep into it and making notes and just writing what was happening over the next year and a half. And I really appreciated that if someone I knew after a year and a half that had experienced a loss, I could share the link with them. It wasn't something I was promoting. And I started writing my event book because I've been an event designer, planner, and producer for 40 years. And I started writing my event book. And it was actually, my husband died, and 2 years later, my sister died. And because my sister was developmentally disabled, I was really her mom for 50 years. So when she died, it was like I had an open space that I could finally start to write my event book that I've been talking about for so long. And I joined a writing group. I took a couple classes and then joined a writing group. I'm still in the writing group 11 years later. So I would say it was 3 years in of writing my event book. And I was so busy with events, I didn't have time to write something. And we meet every Friday to review, read what we've written, and get feedback. So I started reading my blog posts. And they said, you have to turn this into a book, which became a 4-year journey because my blog posts didn't share what happened before I started writing the posts, which was all about my husband dying and what happened. And there's lots of little things that went on there.
I remember you meeting Mike. You and I have been friends a long time, and we went to the same spiritual center and became great friends. And you were the event planner on my 50th birthday party. And we were already friends at that time. And we've just always had this wonderful connection. And I've always looked at you as my spiritual guide. And I don't mean some woo-woo thing, because I'm not a woo-woo person, but I'm spiritual in that, through the journey, I have learned to believe in God, to believe in spirit, which I had not done before. And through my own journey, which was growing up, basically, of life, which is a lot of what you and I experienced, because I was living there in my 40s and 50s, and we went to classes and had different experiences together, a lot of fun, planned a lot of events. I volunteered once where you were doing an event. I was fascinated with how organized you've always been. And I mean, everything in her home, everything is beautifully set up. There's things that are very traditional and old that she had from her parents or an aunt, but beautiful, always. And that you wanted good food, you go to Marinda's. She could cook, barbecue, you always have known how to do it. So, and of course I like to be fed, so it was an easy one for me.
And neither of us really likes to be all that organized.
No, I'm organized, but messy, clean, but messy.
Well, yeah.
So I remember coming over one day, and the cats were running around, and there was this man there at your house. And I don't know if I was there for whatever, pick up something or whatever. And there was this man there, and his name was Mike. And he had been referred to you because he was going to the Culinary Academy in San Francisco, and he needed an internship. And some mutual friends said, oh, you should go work with Marinda. She's an event planner, and she plans food and this and that, and you can learn a lot. So he'd been there, a few weeks or whatever, and I come over, and I could tell this guy had a crush on you. I could tell. He didn't make a secret of it with me, and I said, you need to go for it, okay? I mean, you've been single for a long time. You had a child, you raised your child, there's a daddy who was, she visited and all that, but basically, you were a single parent. She lived with you all the time, other than vacations time. And here's Mike, and he's got this crush, and he's outside smoking, and you're not a smoker. And I said to him, smoking's not going to get it here. I'm giving him advice. Okay, cut to, he spoke up, you spoke up, and you eventually got married, and I was at the wedding. And a dear man. And you built a second story on your home, so you have a beautiful master bedroom all for you guys, which I don't do stairs. So anyway, and I wasn't invited, so I just left it alone. But how long were you all married?
Well, we were married for 5 years. We'd probably known each other for 6 years. Good friends had introduced us. And basically, he had taken a sabbatical from his career of managing multi-billion-dollar construction projects all over the world to live in Marin because he had friends and go to the California Culinary Academy in San Francisco. And he had called me up after we had had brunch with a friend's home saying, I have to do an internship to complete my degree. Would you allow me to come work with you for 3 months, Monday through Friday, and you don't have to pay me? Well, what kind of an invitation is that? So it's like, yes. So I said yes. And I just thought, oh, men are coming in.
Yeah.
I was just asking if you really needed an internship or he just wanted to come hang out with you Monday through Friday.
Well, I put him to work. I had a huge event. He came to work in June, and in September I had a huge event at Ghirardelli Square, a chocolate festival for the weekend with thousands of people. So I said, this is great. I'll have some help. Well, I just thought, oh, look, men are coming into my life. There's a lovely British gentleman in my house. I did not think there was something more. Of course, my cat, he was so happy to have a man in the house. He was lying all over Mike's desk. But it wasn't until after he had completed his degree, and then he asked me out. It was so sweet. And then their second date, first date we had at a restaurant. Second date, he cooked for me, and he made lobster bisque as the first course. He really didn't need another course after that. I had one bite, one taste, and I said to myself, oh my God, will you marry me? Of course, I was like, I can't say that out loud. And a few months later, he did ask me to marry him. He was so cute because he had been carrying around his mother's diamond ring for like 25 years. He'd never been married. And he pulled it out and it fit exactly on my finger. And he goes, oh, it's like the glass slipper. So the sweetest man ever. And unfortunately, he had a massive heart attack and didn't make it. So that was a very sudden expiration for Mike. It was a surprise to him as well as everybody else. So, I know that he was fine. He took off his earth suit. He was fine, but adjusting to that change is a big shock when it has something that happens. Boom, and they're gone physically. So I didn't think about writing a book, as I said, but when I was asked to put all of my blog posts together for a book, I actually then started doing more research on what was the protocol during the 1800s, where people died at home. It was a much more everyday thing. And there was protocol. Women represented the grief for their family, and they were Black 2 to 4 years. And you would know where they were in their process because heavy mourning was Black, middle mourning was dark gray, and light mourning was light gray or mauve. So you knew where they were. And there was also protocol on what to serve for food, and the parlor was where the body was laid out. That was what the parlor was originally for. Who knew, right? So looking at that, after World War I, Chanel comes out with a little black dress. There's no more of that protocol. And so people say, oh my gosh, your husband died last year. Aren't you over with it now? Because people don't understand that it's a process. It's not a one and done. It could take 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever. There is no right or wrong way to grieve, but there is a way to acknowledge and recognize individually your grief, which is why I included information about altars to have a place to focus your grief. But I think that the thing to remember is that everyone takes this journey. I called it the grief train because you never know when the grief train may stop at your station. And it may be years later when something triggers you. And there you are. The grief train is at your station and you need to be with it, honor it, acknowledge it, sit with it, allow it.
I mean, we're all losing people. We're losing people. We also lose situations. We might lose a job. We might lose a friendship that is extremely close. There's so many things we're going to lose in life. Well,
Yes.
it is a process of things of decrease in connection as you make new connections and what all, but
Right.
people that you know forever, a long time, or relationships or situations, it's really hard to lose. And you wonder,
Yeah.
what could I have done better? Or did I do enough? Or how am I going to handle this? How am I going to survive? My dog, putting to sleep a couple of different dogs, the grief
Yeah.
of that and the sense of loss. So,
Absolutely.
how did you deal with it? And how do you say or suggest people deal with it in their life, in their everyday practices, whether it's their prayers or whether it's their studies or friendships? We Jewish people sit Shiva.
Which I think is a great practice,
It's a
actually.
great practice because you get to eat a lot of food. No, okay. I'm being flip here, but seriously, you get to sit with everyone else, family and friends, and people gather and you celebrate the life of someone who's gone.
Mhm.
I've lost relationships with family that I felt like I should sit Shiva because it was gone, and
Yeah.
it's a different situation. So talk about when that happened to you. I'm sure you were in shock and you had to make a lot of adjustments in your life. How did you deal with it?
Well, I open my books and I start studying. That is really one of my practices because, and the bottom line is it's always an inside job. There's nobody out there that can solve it for you, and that it's really about digging deep. I read a lot of books, and I just read recently that there was one of the books I read was Ages for Hawk, which they just made into a movie. But I quoted in my book because she said she felt at one point that she was like underwater, like upside down in her house underwater. And we do feel like that. And really, there's a book that I read that really explains emotions, and that grief, the work of grief is to dive deep down into the waters of grief and immerse yourself in it. You can't hold it at bay because then you're stuck and you can't get out of that situation until you do the work. So you do have to dive down deep. And what does that mean? That means to feel it, experience it, notice it, be aware of it. And, so you sit there and cry, or you just sit there in longing, but you're doing the work of being present with that grief. And that's not that it's all day long, but there are times that, I would sit upstairs on our couch and just read, study, grieve, and be in that place of emotion. And, emotion is energy in motion. And it all starts with a thought, and our thought creates emotion. And the thing that I learned from reading this book, My Stroke of Insight by Jill Bolte Taylor, was the fact that when we have a thought and that thought creates emotion, that energy runs through our body for about 30 seconds or 60 seconds. I don't remember without looking it up. And if it continues, it's because we're continuing to feed that emotion. But if we are the observer, we can also notice that we fed it and choose to allow it to just move out of our body.
To celebrate someone is to remember all the good things. And there are things that are uncomfortable, and there are regrets, which,
Yeah.
Always about living your life now, telling people how you feel now, that you love them, that you care about them, that they're in your thoughts. I do that more and more now. And people, what are you talking about? It's okay. This is what I need to do because I need to tell you how I care and that I love you and that you matter to me and what you do and say. I've said this to Jess. She makes me laugh, and she's a good-hearted, wonderful soul. And I tell her that because she's my friend. And you never know when the end is. We don't know,
Right.
so we don't want regrets about what you didn't share or didn't say. And many of the lessons I've learned from you, Marinda, through the years. You've always been a spiritual teacher for me because your background is just tremendous. You read everything. You're always telling me books to read. You know, I'm watching Netflix, but I count on you to give me the lesson. You know how I am. You know,
I do.
but I pick it up and I have gone to classes and I try to be in that place. And I'm suggesting to our listeners and viewers, go to marindafreeman.com. Is it .com, .net?
MarindaFreeman.com. Yes.
.com. There's so much good stuff there. Not this book, The Grief Train, is tremendous. It's really from your heart and soul. It's, you're not an outwardly expressive person as far as being overly demonstrative like me. I'm off the wall, but in your heart, it runs so deep, and your lessons and your energy and the messages and how you live your life and how you manifest things. I mean, I've seen you manifest like I've never seen anything like it. Person, you have. And we're the same age, and you look a hell of a lot better than I do. I'm just saying. I don't think I like you that much anymore. No.
When we do the episode where you get the facelift,
Okay,
you and Marinda are going to be...
Well, looking good, yeah. No, I mean, we're like 6 weeks apart in age or something like that. That's it. And we've all, always...
You both are gorgeous. All aside, both are gorgeous. And...
Well, we both dye our hair, so that's...
Yes.
No, I stopped.
What? You stopped?
I stopped. Yeah, this is, a little bit of gray.
It's silver. Kind of nice.
Yeah. It was highlighted blonde, and I finally decided, it's like light blonde now.
Okay.
But, I want to just acknowledge what you said, Judy, because, yes, I was just talking the other day in my writing group because the gal who leads it, they had a birthday for their mother who's 98, I think, to really be acknowledging her rather than waiting till a memorial after she's gone. And, to really be present and appreciate the person. I think that would be a wonderful practice. Now, not everybody does it, but if we do it individually, just like you were saying, that is really our biggest role in life, is to appreciate, and what we appreciate appreciates, it grows. And that is really one of our biggest responsibilities, is to be that love, to beam it out and let other people know, because everything is energy, and that we are broadcasting a receiving system. So people that we connect with, they feel our energy. Their brains are entrained with ours. That's neuroscience. So what we feel and think gets broadcast out. So it behooves us to notice what we're doing and really be that love and help others remember that. I mean, I think that's part of it.
Well, the human connection that you emphasize, you have networks of people all and communities. It's separate and then concentric circles sometimes meet. You are the biggest networker I've ever met. If I ever needed a resource, do you know a chiropractor? Do you know this? Do you know a plumber? Whatever it is. Let me get my Rolodex. Let me tell you, amazing resource, and as an event planner and as a human. But you've emphasized human connection and why intention matters. And so how did you address this grief with intention?
One of the things I did was to create an altar, because, photos, flowers, a candle. I had all these pictures of Mike and a candle and flowers, and I used the altar as a way to focus my grief.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it seems like it's everywhere, but then we can create ritual. A friend of mine, she lost her husband, and she read my book and she created an altar. I said, you need to add a candle, and maybe you light it every night so that you have a way to just acknowledge and focus that grief. Now, when each of our cats died, I created an altar because, our pets are family too. And we experience that same loss and grief when they go. So we had so my daughter and we created an altar for each of our cats that died so that, again, it's not just a focus of our grief. It's a way to acknowledge and know how much they were loved by creating that space for them.
A lot of people will feel very comfortable with that. And a lot of people will think that's way too woo-woo and this and that. And, I'm not going to do that. I mean, a man or a woman either one might say that's silly. And then we've seen men or women do that kind of practice. What else is there that you could recommend for people?
I think, again, it's pulling out the books and doing some study, because grief is an emotion that we all have, and it's not the same as sadness, and every emotion is valuable. There are no bad emotions. So that by understanding what that grief is, and I think the most important thing is acknowledging it. Some people want to just push it away, but that just means they're going to stay stuck in it, which is not what they are intending, but that's what the result is. So that you have to acknowledge it. You have to be with it, write down. That's why I was writing for a year and a half. And it was, simple things like, gosh, everything that Mike and I had planned that we were going to do in our life together, I had to erase that blackboard because those things were no longer part of the plan. So there was grief about that, but I wrote it down and acknowledged it, so that becomes a way to create a little more concrete awareness for those things that we have to let go.
I had about 5 months of grief a year ago. From December, for about 4 or 5 months, I was trying to identify what the feeling was of sadness, or it wasn't depression, but the word grief now relates to that. I guess grief about regrets or relationships or friendships that I'd, long past, people of the past, grief about the past. And I had to really get out of bed. And of course, in the winter, when it's dark at, 3 p.m., you hardly want to go out with the dog. And if it's cold or whatever. And so I was going through all of that. And I'm trying to figure out what is going on. And I think it was letting go of my youth, knowing that I'm aging. And it's okay if the knees hurt. It's okay, if a bone hurts or you get slower at stuff. And I was grieving my youth. And then when I got on top of it and thought, I am so grateful. I have so much. And I'm not talking about things. I'm talking about people and friends and connections and attitude and abilities and opportunity and just being alive. I thought to myself, you need to get past this. But I needed to go through it and to recognize the journey is of aging. And as I say, if you're not aging, you be dead. I do that with you. But well, you know me and I know you. And so the reality is this is what started this podcast journey. I thought, okay, this is my journey and I'm not the only one on it. And I'm not the only one being sad or grieving or having to let go or realize that we're getting older and things change and people look at me differently. The whole, in the United States, people aren't as nice to seniors as they are in other cultures. They're not as respectful. Okay. And all of that. And, you're invisible if you're old unless you go show up somewhere and get involved. So, and there's all of that. And I just had to decide who I was now, who I am, who I've always been, and own it and love it and share it. And, we've talked some about this through the years, but I do now, and I'm able to integrate with other people, community and bring what I have. And I got past it. So the loss of a person causes grief as loss of circumstances.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
have you experienced any grief like that of just aging? Or
Well, I look at aging as a bonus because we get to be this age.
yeah,
Not everybody gets to be this age,
yeah,
and that I think the other thing of digging deep down is to find the joy in life
yeah,
because we're here. We're here to express the joy of being present in this life and finding what new things we can learn, because if you stop learning, I think that's another way to be dead. That we need to continually evolve. Life is always evolving and we need to stay up with it. And so I'm constantly reading, learning, and I think that it's important to recognize where you are. Yes, we're not 40 anymore, but we have a lot more experience in our lives, and there are connections that we've made for a long time. And I think that with friendships, there are seasons of friendships. I've had very close friends that certain period of time we're very close and then that moves on. So over time, I've learned that we have friendships that have a season that aren't ongoing. So I would say you and I are blessed that we have continued to have a wonderful friendship. And I do have others that I have a wonderful friendship with. So we have to embrace that we have and not spend our time grieving over those things that we don't have anymore. It sort of ties in with one of my principles in my book, Everything is an Event. You want to be present celebrate with who's present, not thinking about somebody that didn't show up.
right.
So,
Right. Right. Absolutely. It's interesting because you and I were going to talk to each other and have this conversation. Jess and I, we've talked about it this week, us having this conversation on grief. And another person in my life, different than you, but close with me, before I met you, an actress, writer from Los Angeles. When I moved to Los Angeles in Santa Monica in my early 30s, and we were friends forever. We produced together. She wrote a wild, wonderful spirit. She passed away this week. Mm. And so I find myself grieving.
Yeah.
And then, and because this woman is a treasure as a friend, a treasure spirit. And she had dementia and Alzheimer's for the last 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned her to me. Yeah.
Yes. And a beautiful soul, just amazing. I mean, the stories of her life are amazing. And I'm coming to grips with it because I had her on my list. Okay, mm-hmm. Call Camilla. Okay, and then call this one, call that one. We have a mutual friend, Jane, who's infirm. Right. Call Jane. And you don't do it. Yeah. You wait because you're busy. And I don't know that we would have been able to have a conversation, but I do remember our last conversation where we did consciously connect, and then she'd forget, and then we'd continue talking. And I became friends with her son that I knew since he was a kid, where she used to pick him up. We'd go and pick him up from school and get him home, and he's 55 years old now. And he's an artist and he's a beautiful soul. And he wrote on Caring Bridge, which is a way for people who care to be connected. And he sent out this amazing dialogue of the last few days and him holding her hand as she passed and trying to connect with her and be with her. I mean, it brought me to tears. Mm-hmm. And it made me think, I'm grieving. And I will see him the next time I'm in Los Angeles. I haven't seen him in all these years, but I will because I want to. And there's another friend that I had since college, that passed away last year. That is one of those, I want to call them icons, but they're not icons. They're specific people that you want to say, hey, look what I accomplished, or hey, what you accomplished, and you celebrate each other and everybody. Hey, I lost a bunch of weight. Hey, I got, this degree, or I wrote this book, or whatever it is. You want those people, you reach out and say, hey, be proud of me, and I'm proud of you. Okay. Well, Camilla was one of those. And so many of those of mine have passed in recent years. They're gone. And I grieve that, and I celebrate what we had. So you talk about friendships of the season and friendships that are of a lifetime, whatever lifetime. Right. And I feel the sense of loss, and I celebrate what we had. I don't want to cry.
I think you call it bittersweet, bittersweet, because not only are you grieving, but there is appreciation and gratitude for having had them in your life and for knowing them and the gifts that they provided. And so all of that is wrapped up into that package of, gosh, now they're no longer here, but, their essence and what they were here lives on. That doesn't disappear. So we can remember that. And yes, we have to get used to that they're not physically here anymore, but to love them and so appreciate them. And when you read something like that her son read, yes, it does bring you tears, but it's so beautiful.
To feel the love and the lives she touched mine, I touched hers. We had much laughter and closeness and projects and things, accomplishments and ups and downs. So that is part of this journey. And so I was so happy that we were scheduled to talk today so that we could connect on your book, and because you are an amazing teacher. People who read The Grief Train, which I'll hold up again, but you can go to marindafreeman.com, but also who get to know you. See, I know you. I know how amazing, how you can put something together out of thin air. You celebrate everything in your life. You're not a grouser. You're not a negative person. There's not a bone like that in your life. You are such a loving being, and you share it and you teach it. And in your event planning career, okay, which is, you've got it. And I know you sat at the table with Martha Stewart when she started her catering business. And was it Bridgeport, Connecticut?
Westport, Connecticut.
Westport, Connecticut.
Yeah, I was our executive director for 2 years, and it was right after her book, Entertaining, came out.
Your latest book that I want to let everybody know about is called Everything is an Event, a step-by-step guide creating memorable occasions for today's lifestyle with 15 principles revealed. This is really beautiful stuff if people want to learn how to plan an event, but how to connect. And it's all about how to do that in your environment and how you serve, when you serve, what you serve. All these principles, people can learn a lot from you, Marinda. Okay. You're a wonderful teacher.
Well, what I've realized, when I started looking into what these principles were, I had been doing events for 10 years. And then I am heading over the Golden Gate Bridge to do a huge event of 2,500 guests each night for 2 nights in the city. And I thought, what if I could produce events from a more spiritual standpoint? What are the spiritual or universal principles that are always operating? So over 5 years with that big event and a community event, I started using those as my laboratory to explore, discover, and prove these principles to myself. And then I started teaching them to my clients. And I have been teaching my clients and in classes for the last 25, 30 years, these principles. And after publishing this book last year, I realized, wait a minute, these are not just the principles of how to manifest an event. They are also the principles how to manifest anything in your life.
Right. Because all of life is an event.
Yeah, everything is an
event. Exactly. And how you approach it and prepare for it. it is a manifestation of what's going on within and the appreciation of the people or your guests or who you're going to be, socializing with. And your home is like that, every event. I remember we had some party over there at your house, and I was making the margaritas. That's all I remember.
Oh, boy.
I was in charge of the thing, the margarita, the blender and the margarita. Okay, girls, let's party down. You may not remember that.
I don't recall that, but it's probably very true.
If you had a couple of Judy's margaritas, you definitely don't remember.
Whenever we went over, and I know how you laid the coals in, with the barbecue. You didn't have the one I had in the backyard. You just crank it on and grill the stuff. No, you set the coals out and the thing on top and where to put the meat, and so that it would be perfectly timed. Okay, I didn't want to work that hard, and I didn't know what and what was it? Flank steak. That was one of your favorite things to serve, flank steak, right?
Marinated flank steak. I haven't eaten beef in years, but back then.
You don't eat beef? No, what do you don't?
No, fish, chicken, lots of vegetables.
Yeah.
We are blessed in California with such amazing fresh produce. Yeah.
You are, and also there's pretty good evidence that that's the right diet to stay alive longer too.
Yes. Although the keto diet, which I've used, it's farm-raised, grass-fed beef is very, very healthy. As long as you know the feed it's had and that it really is pasture-raised and there isn't something slipped in there.
Right, absolutely. We want green food, whether it's meat, fish. We don't want farm-raised fish because they're not getting the nutrients. But, that is part of being conscious of what we put in our body, because I think food is medicine. We really, that's what we put in our body more than anything else. But, I'm a foodie. I've taught cooking classes over the years, decades of, and then also taught canning classes, which I actually did some last summer also in Marin. And I'm teaching event design and event planning classes online, as well as I've got another one at Book Passage end of March. So I want to help people think differently about events rather than being overwhelmed, to be nervous. That to think differently is they can plan events with greater ease, more fun, joy, and no stress. It's so not necessary.
I like canning. I do like when you're canning, though. I usually get a jelly or something, or preserves.
You just like being on the receiving end.
I like it, yeah. Although I watched this show, it's called Life Below Zero. It's on National Geographic. I watch National Geographic religiously, and people living in Alaska, subsistence living. And so they hunt and they fish and they chop down trees to build their abode, and they don't have electricity. They have to go chop wood, carry water, and they're out there doing it, and they're canning things. And they're canning the caribou they caught.
Right.
They skin it and they don't. And I watch this.
You've been obsessed with this.
I love this.
This has been months.
And I don't like cold weather. No, years. It's years I watch this.
Okay.
I love it.
You've been talking about this show, and it is the most off-brand show to me based on
I love it.
What you like to do in your life. But I guess that's part of why you like it. Because you're not canning anything.
No. And I'm not gutting or cleaning or skinning anything either.
No, she's not going to be hunting that caribou or fishing for those big salmon.
No caribou hunting.
No,
none of it.
But
so this is like, she's been talking about this for I don't know how long. It's an obsession.
Well, it's of great interest to me. I like watching people freeze at -40 and hunt, but it's subsistence. They got to do it or they're not going to eat. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's a camera crew out there that saved this guy's leg one day, but they all had to come in and, helicopter him out. I mean, it happens. But For the most part, that's the way people do live. I'm fascinated with it. But when you can and do these things, I've always been fascinated when you do that. And you and Mike used to do that too. I remember this.
Yeah, well, I almost got married June 17th, 1972, which turned out to be the date of the Watergate break-in. I had sent out invitations and then sent out cancellation notices. So my aunt came out and we made jam. And that was the beginning of my canning career for 50 years. I've been canning ever since. And I don't go shopping at Christmas. I make my jam during the summer when the fruit is available. And then I shop in my shelves for Christmas gifts and don't have to go to the store. And so that's
I love that. I mean, that it is why, I watch Life Below Zero.
Subsistence shopping in Marin County.
Exactly. That's very funny. One of the most expensive places to live in the United States. She's, canning her preserves.
Just to get by.
You're lucky if you get a gift from Marinda. Let me tell you. Oh, trust me. Or she feeds you a meal.
Yeah.
It's
okay. I gotta send you some jam, obviously.
Clearly.
This is all just a hint. This is a not very subtle hint.
Yes.
Just send items.
Coming right up next week, hon.
Yeah, we've had adventures and we've seen friends pass and we've grieved and we've celebrated lives together. But this book really is tremendous, and it's a great lesson in how to live. Not just celebrating or, grieving someone's passing, but how to celebrate a life and to appreciate. And that's all we have is today, this moment, and the future. And as I've said before, we have much more time being a senior, we hope, than we ever were an adolescent. So we can't stop our learning. We have to keep going. People are going to pass in and out of our lives, friendships, good ones, seasons, and then people are going to pass on. And how do we deal with it? How do we live our life the best? How do we be teachers? How do we be a good friend? How do we support someone who is grieving?
And I think that, gratitude is a really important quality because we need to be grateful for being here, being grateful for those that have been in our lives that have taken off their earth suit, as I say, that are no longer here physically, to remember them, acknowledge them, appreciate them. I mean, there's that gratitude for all those beautiful people that have been in our life that are no longer around, but what a gift they were to experience them in our lives. I mean, I had a woman who was my neighbor in high school who really became like my second mother. My mother died when I was 10. So in high school, she lived 2 doors away. I practically wore a path in the grass of the house in between. But I really learned unconditional love from her. And when she passed, I kept an altar up for her with a picture for like a year because she meant so much to me. And, I could think about the gifts she gave me and I might be in tears and there's the grief train showing up in my station. And, at the same time there's grief, there is love, a lot of love. And that's really the bottom line of grief is that we grieve because of the love, and the love never dies. That we hold in our hearts forever.
When Mike passed, were there things people said to you that were very comforting and wonderful? And were there things that people said to you that were uncomfortable or they were unconscious about how to address his loss for you?
That's a good question. I was in such a fog, as I share in my book and my blog posts, that, when I coordinated the memorial in Marin County, which he died end of October, and then this was in December, I looked at the timeline that I wrote of every, when people were coming in and what we were doing. And then I looked at it much later and go, oh my gosh, it was so nice that my brother and sister-in-law had dinner after a memorial. And I was like, I could barely remember everything. So,
Right.
there's a fog. And actually, the fog is a cushioning that's a gift we don't realize to cushion the grief when
Yeah.
you have something shocked like that.
Our brain knows what to do, right? Our brain helps us out in that way.
Exactly. We don't even realize that it's a fog, until later when you can look back and like, oh, I've been in a fog. That's how I wrote it, because when you're in it, you don't see the fog. But then, oh my gosh, I've been in a fog. And I'm such an organized event planner. I could do all the events and be in a fog. But
Right.
not to be conscious of it. I do think that it's important to appreciate those that come to honor and acknowledge when you do a celebration of life, a memorial. I think they're the same thing. You're remembering, but you're honoring them and remembering them. And it was a little less than a year after he died, I was in Hawaii and with a bunch of friends, and we did a ceremony to put his ashes in the ocean. He always wanted to move to Hawaii and open a restaurant. Well, that didn't happen, but we brought Mike to Hawaii. And then it turned out that it was, I never looked at the box when I picked it up. I just had it in a bag, and then I threw the bag in my suitcase. 9 months later, went to Hawaii, finally opened it up, and here's this metal box we can't even open.
Oh,
It's
no.
like sealed shut. So we had to call the handyman at the resort, and he's got his crowbar, and he's going, did he really like it here? I'm like, yeah, he did. So we had to delay our ceremony a little bit to open it up to get the ashes.
It's funny.
But we had a beautiful ceremony right on the beach, and I was standing in the water, and then we threw in flowers from Lay's, and we did some singing and a little bit of prayer. And one of the people there said, "This is how he wants to be remembered," because it just takes a moment to bring people together and just honor the moment of doing a ceremony. Some people don't call that a ceremony, but it is. I helped another client. They want to cast the relatives' ashes in the bay, of Golden Gate Bridge. Not on the bridge, but under the bridge. So arranged for a boat for them to do that. And again, that is a ceremony. When we create ceremony has been happening from the beginning of time.
Right.
And I think that it's important to have ceremony because it grounds the energy in our body of what we're doing, whether it's creating an altar and lighting a candle, or it's sharing in a celebration of life or memorial with everyone that comes to come together and share the love. That's what's really being shared. And then if we're dispersing the ashes, to do that again, that is a ceremony that brings us present in that moment to honor that experience.
I mean, I have dog ashes, and I have some ashes of Sophie that she passed away when I was in Texas. And I have her ashes, and I spread some on the property where we spent time. And I have ashes when I was last in Marin. I didn't bring them because it was raining and I was in and out. I'm going to bring them and spread them where we used to go walking all the time.
Nice.
The park out there. So, yeah. And so I keep that and I celebrate that, and I will do that because I love my dog and that was where she belongs.
Yeah, she is so sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's something so amazing because I was looking at your books, both of them sitting on the desk, and I was like, oh my gosh, what a span, right? These books are not connected to me. And actually they are. They're perfectly connected. Marinda, because somebody who's really excellent at honoring events and special occasions is actually, if you're doing it right, I think maybe you are so well positioned to understand how to honor grief too, and how to go through grief, and how to have events and altars or whatever, whatever your practice calls to you, to be able to be in it and to move through it and come out the other side, which is, I think, so hard for people. I mean, it's hard to feel gratitude when you're still stuck back in grief.
One of the things Marinda does is celebrate life, events, but moments of life. I mean, you take a moment and appreciate it and celebrate or experience it, even if it's not a positive one. You'd like a different outcome. I've never seen you ignore a moment without recognizing it, how it belongs in your life, or a life, or lives of your students or your teachers. I mean, you are an amazing student because you read. And now, I mean, you've always been a great teacher, but now you really are a teacher. And I would love to see you more recognized for what you bring. You're not a loud person. You're not, out there. But you are a jewel. You're a gem. And I feel that way. I always have since.
Well, Jess, I wanted to say thank you for connecting us between the two books, because I sort of look at them as not the same. One is a much more personal, the grief train, but at the same time, I share in Everything is an Event about doing memorials. And, I think fun is the energy of attraction. But now if you do a memorial, a celebration of life, that's not about fun, but it's about bringing people together in love to care and share about how they love that person. So every event is about an experience. It's not, so the experience is going to be different when you're having a birthday party versus a celebration of life or memorial. But underlying all of those is the connection of love and community, because that's the purpose of every event, no matter what kind, and it makes me think about, I've done virtual memorials, and then during the pandemic, I was planning a celebration of life to be in San Francisco, and then they decided to cancel it, and we had to create a film, which is another kind of event. And I hired a producer and a director, because they had to hire a camera and lighting team, because the people that were coming from across the country to speak in San Francisco were all the way from New Hampshire to Hawaii and then Northern and Southern California. So we needed a crew to videotape every one of them, and the director needed to review their script, teach them how to speak to the camera, which is not just like speaking in front of people, and then putting all of that together, which was a whole month of getting more photos, because you can't have one photo for a minute of talking. Well, you can't just have talking heads. But it was with an alignment with who this person was that I actually knew very well, to honor them in a way that was a celebration of them, and also of the level of quality and beauty that they represented. And I know that we did that because we got feedback saying this would have been exactly what she wanted. So there are so many ways for us to be able to express that love and care and appreciation. And, I say everything is an event, but there's a deeper awareness of connection and love that happens.
I'm so grateful and appreciative of your being with us today, Marinda. Your wisdom, your heart shines through this book and everything you do. And I'm honored to be your friend. You mean a lot to me. And I think everyone who gets to hear you or see you will want you to be their friend as well, would love to have somebody like you in their life. And I'm grateful and thank you for coming today and sharing. And we've never done this before, you and I, even like interviewed convert. We talk, but
Yeah.
this has really been tremendous. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity to connect with you, Judy, in this new way, and I applaud you. I love this whole thing that you're doing. Not ready for the farm. We all are not ready for the farm. We're ready for more life, more fun, more joy, and that we can continue to evolve and learn and grow no matter our age. And we see more examples of that. That people are, gosh, look at Dick Van Dyke. He is like the best example ever at 100 years old. And to be super healthy and dancing through life. And isn't that an inspiration? We should express that joy of dancing through life like Dick Van Dyke.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah, the thing that really struck me about her and her book and how she blends this amazing ability to honor life events of all sorts, right? Is this, she's really talking about having to deal with grief and having to wade through it in order to get to that point where you do feel the gratitude or you do feel the joy at thinking about the person you're missing, right? And I think that's something that we are so good at ignoring what we're feeling because it's unpleasant or it's uncomfortable, or we can play games online or we can tune out, right? We all do it. And so what a great way of teaching people how to navigate grief.
Well, she lives her life with challenges and joys, but whatever it is, I've never seen her go under. I've seen her try to find a way to rise above and to be in the moment and to accept the lessons, whether she's made a mistake or whether there's a tragedy or whether there's joy. She's very level-headed and tries to learn from it and is always reading things and always sending me things.
Then she became an expert on grieving in the 18th century or what, and I thought that was so fascinating that they had, I wasn't crazy about the part where women have to kind of dress in a certain way for years on end, right? But whatever. The point is that they had a system and a way of honoring the fact that grief is a long process,
right? And
that people around you really should be acknowledging and understanding what you might be going through in that moment. But I think now we often kind of do expect people to just feel better, and we expect them to be on a timeline, and that is so unrealistic. So imagine having 4 years where you are basically dressing in a way that's telling people, hey, I might not be okay. And imagine people actually honoring that and understanding with you what you're going through. That's just nothing but smart.
And in this day and age of high tech, okay, people may not recognize somebody is going through a difficult time or is grieving because the pace of life, compared to the 1800s, the 1900s, here we are, things are so fast, we don't realize we are grieving many losses that might be happening around us. And it is, how do we deal with that? How do we continue with our lives in a positive way, learn something from it, make a contribution, help others, as well as take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself when you need to. And so many people, caregivers, aren't taking care of themselves because they're taking care of somebody they need to take care of. Yeah. And it's a big burden on them while they're watching someone be sick and they're grieving. There's so many types of grief, and how you deal with life in and of itself day to day. And media moves so fast, it just takes all the attention and takes all the energy.
Well, so our brains are not moving at the speed of technology or anything else. Our brains are still back in the 1800s needing time,
And
right?
our hearts and our brains, we need to take care of ourselves, reflect, what is the loss we're having
Yeah.
of the person or the situation? What is that loss? And learn from it.
Well,
Do our best to learn from it.
I can tell you that taking care of my dad was a blur. I was taking care of somebody and trying to make sure he was okay, and I didn't have time, I thought,
Right.
to take care of myself at all. And that did slow down all the process of grieving and actually moving through, right? There's this kid's book called, I think, We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And it says, we can't go over it, can't go under it, we got to go through it. And I'm like, that's what it feels like to me. Is like, you know what? It sucks, but if we go through it, we're going to actually get to the other side.
Exactly. We have to go through it. It's like the story of the penguins. Someone once told the story of the penguins, and they're on the iceberg, and the water's coming up, and they back up. Water's coming up, and it's up to their little knees or whatever that, and backing up. And the reality is, they're going in.
Right.
Water's coming up. They're going to be totally in it. It's happening.
It's happening.
So deal with it. And how
Despite
do
their
you
cute little penguin knees, they are, which I would like to think about a lot. But they're going in.
They're going in.
Yeah.
So get ready and be prepared and get through it.
Yeah.
So I just think she's got tremendous lessons and so much. I hope our listeners and viewers will take the time to go check out MarindaFreeman.com and take a look at the book and other stuff she has and references she has. And as we always do to end our program today, we show a mug and we ask you to go to our website, check out MarindaFreeman.com, check out the one piece of swag we have today. I'm supposed to hold it up. Hold up the swag. This is it. Again, we don't know how much it costs. It's on there. It'll be reasonable because it's not about profit. It's about sharing.
Yeah. And if you find a lipstick stain on it, it might have been Judy's mug.
And they're a limited number because we only have so many.
Right.
And they're kind of fun, and we like drinking.
Well, they took forever to get here.
Yeah, they did.
And now they are. I mean, they're a very popular item.
Are they?
Yeah, well, I think so. And everybody who gets one, who comes on the show, loves them. Mm-hmm. And it does have your mug on the mug.
It has Judy's mug.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that is, yes, that's the only item right now. Of course, if you have ideas for other items that you would like or that you would wear, you're welcome to email. And Judy can, start putting them together with her tiny little hands. She can start creating
I will
items.
build each one myself. I'll knit.
Yeah.
I'll crochet. Yeah. My grandma taught me to crochet. I'll do whatever with these little fingers.
Yeah.
What's left of them. And anyway, come to our website. Thank you for joining us today. This is a very special episode with a really dear friend of mine who I'm proud to have on with us and to share her message of grief. And, we have happy moments. It's about living to the fullest with a great attitude. So we thank you for spending your time with us, and we will see you down the road. We appreciate you joining us here at Not Ready for the Farm as we navigate the journey of aging. Please like and subscribe and visit our website at notreadyforthefarm.com. Find us wherever you stream your podcasts.